Imagine, you're dead, and it turned out that you will not be judged by the law, the state, or your neighbor for your life, and someone you've never met and who can't be bribed, persuaded, or challenged. Convenient, isn't it? But here's a question that for some reason almost no one asks. Who exactly is it convenient for? Because hell is not a place where sinners go. Hell is a tool, and it wasn't invented for the dead. It was invented for you while you're still alive. Why does almost every civilization, every religion, every culture have an afterlife? The Egyptians, Greeks, the Sumerians, the Zoroastrians, Christians, Muslims, the Buddhists, the Aztecs, even nations that have never crossed geographically, everyone has a judgment after death. Everyone has a place of punishment. Everyone has a place of reward. The standard response: this is because people are afraid of death and they need hope. They need justice. They need to believe that the villains will not go unpunished. It sounds beautiful. It sounds human. But this explanation is only half the truth. Moreover, the smaller half. The real question is different. Why does the government need the afterlife? What exactly does it do with real people who believe in it? Most people explain it like this: the afterlife is about meaning, about the fact that life is not meaningless, that good will be rewarded and evil will be punished. And this is of course true. Psychologically, it is certainly true. When a person feels bad, when the injustice is obvious and irreparable, the belief that everything will level out after death reduces anxiety, literally. Neuroscientists confirm this. The belief in just retribution activates the same areas of the brain as the feeling of control over the situation. The person calms down. It makes him feel better. In addition, the afterlife is an attempt to answer the most difficult question that a person has. What will happen to my I after the body dies? It's an existential buffer. That's all true, but this is a function for humans, and now we're talking about something else, a function for the system. That's what happens if you look at the story without sentimentality. Take ancient Egypt, about 2,400 years before our era. There appears the Book of the Dead, a detailed code of the afterlife court. The heart of the deceased is weighed on a scale with the feather of the goddess Mot. If your heart is heavier, you are being devoured by the monster Amet.
A beautiful metaphor? Yes. But here's the detail. Whoever had access to these rituals, to the right spells, to the right amulets, went through the trial. Do you know who had such access? Those who could pay the priests. That is, even in ancient Egypt, the afterlife was already monetized. Fast forward to medieval Europe, the Catholic Church introduces the concept of purgatory, a place where you can wash off your sins, but only if your living relatives pay for prayers and indulgences. It was literally a market, futures for the salvation of the soul. Martin Luther, when he began the Reformation, struck at this very thing first, because he realized that selling the afterlife is a business. Moreover, it is the most secure business in the world, because no one can demand a return of the goods. Stop. Do you see what's going on? We have not yet reached the psychology of power, but we have already stumbled upon economics. The afterlife was not only a consolation, it turned out to be a currency. There is an old psychological experiment. People are given a task that has no correct solution. They try again and again, and they develop a condition called learned helplessness. They stop trying. They give up. Now, imagine that you live in a medieval village. You're being exploited. Your position will never change. You can't move, you can't change your liege, you can't protest because it's deadly dangerous. And they tell you, yes, you have nothing here, but everything will be there. Accept it. Be patient. Wait a minute. It's not a consolation. This is a demobilization instruction. It is a psychological mechanism that turns discontent into humility, anger into prayer, and revolution into repentance. Karl Marx called it the opium of the people. The phrase has become famous and is often taken out of context, but that's exactly what he meant. The religious promise of afterlife retribution is anesthesia, which allows the system to continue working without correction. And the most subtle thing here is that it doesn't work through coercion. It works through voluntary acceptance. A person convinces himself to endure. It's much more effective than any whip. Where did hell come from in the form in which we know it? It is interesting. In early Judaism, there is no hell. Generally, the dead end up in Sheol. It's just a dark place, devoid of any qualities. There is no punishment, there is no bliss there. It's simple, there is nothing. The first mentions of punishment after death appear around the 3rd century BC, during the Hellenistic period, when Jewish texts began to be influenced by Greek philosophy, in particular Platonic ideas about the immortality of the soul and retribution. And the word Gehenna, which translates as hell, is literally the name of a real place. Gai Ben Hinnom is a valley southwest of Jerusalem, where, according to legend, garbage was burned and sacrifices were made. A place with a bad reputation, a real physical place.
That is, hell began as a metaphor based on a real stinking place, and then the metaphor became a doctrine, and then doctrine became politics. In early Christian literature, hell is being detailed more and more every century. Dante's Divine Comedy in the 14th century is already a full-fledged topographic atlas of hell with 9 circles, each of which is designed for specific sins and, significantly, specific people. Dante places his personal enemies and political opponents there, the dads he didn't like, politicians. Hell has become an instrument of political rhetoric, literally. You might think, well, it's all medieval, historical, archaic. It doesn't work today. Works. It just looks different. Take the Soviet atheist regime, the one that officially destroyed religion. What did he create instead of an afterlife judgment? The court of history. It was not the fire of Gehenna that awaited the traitors of the motherland, but the shame of the ages. The real enemies of the people were erased from archives, from photographs, from textbooks. Their posthumous existence was destroyed. It's the same structure, the same logic, only without God. Or take the modern cancel culture. Cancel culture, a person is publicly destroyed, not physically, but socially. He is being erased from the public space. In fact, this is the same mechanism of the afterlife judgment, only transferred online and occurring during life. You will be judged. Your name will be spoken with contempt. You will not be saved. There is only one mechanism. The scenery is different. And now, the most provocative layer. I'm not saying it's true. I suggest you think about it. In any system where there is an afterlife court, there is always an intermediary, someone who knows the rules, someone who can explain exactly what needs to be done to get there, not there. There are priests in Egypt. In medieval Europe, there were priests. In modern Islam, there are ulama and mufti. In modern evangelicalism, there are pastors with a donation cup. Note the pattern. An intermediary is always indispensable. You can't contact the afterlife accounting department directly. You need him. And this is not accidental. It's a system-forming feature, because an intermediary is a point of control. If you can go to heaven yourself without a priest, why do you need a priest? And if there is no way without him, he has the power. The Reformation destroyed this monopoly in Europe. Protestantism said, you can read the Bible yourself. You don't need an intermediary. And it was a real revolution, not political, but anthropological. But the intermediaries have not disappeared. They have evolved. Today, an intermediary is an algorithm, a media expert, an influencer, the one who determines what is good and what is bad, who is worthy of respect, and who is worthy of cancellation. The afterlife court went online, and it works around the clock. Now let's go up a level and see how this mechanism permeates the entire social architecture. Any state needs its citizens to behave in a certain way, even when no one is watching. The police can't be everywhere. There aren't enough cameras for every nook and cranny of every soul. We need an internal supervisor. Sigmund Freud called this the superego, an internal censor that is shaped by society and works from within. A prison without walls, a supervisor without a salary. The afterlife is an architectural project of a superego on the scale of civilization. This is an external system that becomes an internal one. It's not the police you're starting to fear. You start to be afraid of yourself, your thoughts, their desires. It's brilliant from a management point of view, because a person who controls himself is the cheapest and most reliable mechanism of the social order. Look at the economy. Protestant ethics, and this is a serious historical theory developed by Max Weber, directly links the development of capitalism with the concept of predestination. Calvinism said that if you are rich and successful, it is a sign that God has chosen you. If you are poor, it is also a sign. And people started working not out of greed, but out of existential fear, to prove to themselves and the world that they are the chosen ones. That is, the Industrial Revolution was partly fueled by fear of the afterlife. People literally worked for paradise. And now look at the power. The most stable authoritarian regimes in history are not those that have used only fear of physical punishment. The most resilient were those who added a metaphysical dimension to fear. God is on our side. History will justify us. The enemies of the nation will be cursed. It works. It has always worked, because the metaphysical threat is endless. A physical executioner can make a mistake. Metaphysical, never. And now, a U-turn. The very moment for which I was telling all this. We talked about hell as a tool of control. We talked about heaven like a carrot in front of your nose. We talked about intermediaries who monopolize the entrance, and it's all true. But there's something I've been deliberately putting off. Because if hell was invented for control, when exactly does it stop working? The answer is when people stop believing in him. And that's where the fun begins. Look at the stats. In countries with a high level of secularization, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, belief in hell is minimal. But at the same time, the crime rate is also minimal. Corruption is minimal. Social trust is maximized. That is, do people who do not believe in an afterlife judgment behave better than those who do?
Wait, this completely destroys the logic of everything is allowed without hell. What if it's the other way around? What if the afterlife court is not a reason for good behavior, but a substitute for it? A crutch that is used where real social institutions don't work. Countries with strong courts, honest police, and working laws don't need a metaphysical overseer. They have a real one. And countries with corruption, injustice, and lawlessness, where faith in afterlife retribution is at maximum, because this is the last hope for justice. Do you understand what this means? Hell is not an alternative to injustice. Hell is a symptom of injustice. The more hell there is in theology, the more injustice there is in reality. And here's the real twist. Those who used hell as a tool of control, they created a system that in the long run undermined the real rule of law. Because why build honest courts if there is a last judgment? Why fight corruption if God sees everything? The afterlife has become not an addition to justice, it has become its substitute. And that's why the civilizations that abandoned it turned out to be more just than those that clung to it the most. You've lived your whole life with the feeling that there's a recording going on somewhere,
that there is a book that celebrates your actions, that there will be a trial. Maybe it's true. I don't know. No one knows. But now, you know something else. You know that this idea is not just theology, it's a technology. It was created, honed, and spread not only because people are afraid of death, but also because it was beneficial to someone that you were afraid of life. And that's the question I'll leave you with. If you remove the fear of the afterlife judgment, what remains? Chaos? Or maybe freedom? Responsibility without coercion? Ethics without a whip? Because if justice is possible only with the threat of eternal punishment, then this is not justice. This is blackmail. And one last thing. Every time someone tells you, behave yourself or you'll regret it, ask yourself one question. Who exactly benefits from being afraid? Because hell wasn't made for the dead. It was made up for you, while you're still here.